I just feel like I've been around the block, ripping up fantasy stock, working around the clock. Look at the view from the top. Researching rookies a lot? No, I just be listening to pods. Yeah, one in particular, I'm just a messenger. Let me just pass on the rock. Browning, brunning, pruning, pronouncing ain't what he's doing. What he's doing is not losing, but infusing you with new things. And there's Dennis the Bennett, yeah. The man is a menace, yeah. Building a dynasty, some of the finest things. Promise you, you won't regret it. Sly as a fox, cultured in pop. Give him his props. Here is a thought, here is a box. And you cannot compare them at all, so don't even try. Careful with the news, but when you use a take, I take up Tony Fire. I mean Dyer, because anyone else is a huge mistake. Whoa, fantasy round table, fantasy round table. Yeah. Fantasy round table, come take a look at the crown, baby. Hey, fantasy round table, fantasy round table. Woo. Fantasy round table, come take a look at the crown, baby. Go.
What is going on, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Fantasy Football Roundtable Podcast. It is Monday, August 30th, technically, I guess 2 days away from September. We will be kicking off football. NFL, we got a whole weekend, or really 5 days of college football coming up all to itself, and then the NFL that week on Thursday kicks off with the Buccaneers and the Cowboys. We have done it. We are officially through, hopefully, most of the injuries, as we did have quite a couple this weekend that we will talk about. We're also going to jump in and talk about the AFC team over and unders. Dennis, Matt, how are you gentlemen doing on this beautiful Monday?
I am doing outstanding. I was, I guess I'm doing fair. I've got like 1 or 2 shares of J.K. Dobbins that I roster, and in one of them, I also have George Kittle, and it's no flexes. And the guy sends me an offer, and he's like, hey, I know you got Dobbins, so I'm going to offer you Gus Edwards. He sends me Edwards. Who was the other one? It was Edwards, a second-round pick. Oh, and Hunter Henry for George Kittle. I was like, are you serious?
He was serious.
I'm like,
yeah. So
I countered. I'm like, well, now how about mixing an A-Rob for Kittle, which was a fairer trade, slanted in my direction a little bit. But the other one, I was like, come on, man. I like Gus all right, but I don't think I don't know. He doesn't automatically go from, an RB3-4 to a top 8 running back right now. I think there's going to be some spreading the ball around a little bit there. But other than that, I'm doing great. I'm having a fantastic Monday. Still wish I was in Hawaii, but I'm not.
I mean, Baltimore already has a top 5 running back. He just happens to play quarterback.
Shut your whore mouth.
Hey, I mean, realistically, their backup running back is not that bad. So before let's just jump right into it. J.K. Dobbins. Dennis was just mentioning it. As myself, I have a fair share of Dobbins as well. Being a Buckeye, I've been a big fan of him for quite a couple years now. Him going down, he's going to miss likely the entire season. I don't see any way they bring him back. I know George Pickens on the college side has come back within, I think it's been like 5 months since he tore his. I guess realistically, there's a shot that Dobbins could come back for the playoffs. I do believe Baltimore will make it even without him. But I don't think it's going to happen. Realistically, he's out the year, and that's all that matters for us on the fantasy side of things. All the talk has been Gus Edwards. We know that he was likely going to get a fair share of the ball, even with Dobbins there. Matt, what does this do for Gus's stock now and rising it up? And do you think anybody else participates in that backfield? Is it just going to be the Gus Bus show now? I believe Justice Hill is still there. Is Justice Hill going to kind of reemerge? Like, What does this mean for the rest of this backfield outside of Gus as well?
And I know Harbaugh came out today and said, hey, we like Justice Hill, we like Travion Williams behind Gus. We think we can win with that group. That is what a head coach has to say and should say. I'm sure they do like those guys. I'm sure those guys are going to be fine contributors. They're 100% going to go get a veteran back. This isn't like a team that maybe was on the bubble of 500. Could they be a contender? This is a team that has Super Bowl aspirations. It's not even just, are those 3 guys enough? It's the reality of the NFL is you're not going to have all three of those guys all 17 games. They need more depth. I know a lot of people have talked about them potentially reuniting with Mark Ingram. That would make some sense. There's been talk about them trying to trade for Melvin Gordon. I honestly don't think Denver's going to give Melvin Gordon because they also think that they are going to ride Teddy Bridgewater to the postseason. I'm less sure. I think they'd be more interested in giving Royce Freeman. I don't know how Baltimore would feel about that. I think it's more likely they scoop that, or we are about to see a real bloodletting tomorrow. Of players. I am sure there are going to be a lot of potential options. I think they add some kind of a body. I am less sold on Todd Gurley. I'm not sure he has the knees to hold up.
Yeah, I don't think it's going to be Gurley, and I don't think it's going to be Ingram either. I wouldn't mind Gordon there because Gordon does kind of have a little better pass catching background than Gus Edwards does. You know, Tyson Williams, he flashed in college, but he just, never quite put it all together. He went to 3 different colleges. He had a bad knee injury. He's healthy now. He's been with Baltimore for a couple years, or at least all last year and this offseason. So he knows the system, and he's a good-sized back. I think he's 215, 220. So he brings a lot to the table of what they lost in J.K. Dobbins. So I wouldn't be surprised to see them, move forward with the status quo, somebody that maybe they were going to stash on their practice squad and let that person be their 4th running back. If they do sign a veteran, and not that Gurley is who it would be, but if they do sign a veteran, I would expect it to be after week 1 so that the salary is not guaranteed for the season. If they sign him after week 1, then they can cut him, and it ends up not costing anything. They're out of it with what they got. I like Edwards to maybe go from 8 to 10, maybe 12 carries a game to, 15 or 16. Justice Hill maybe to go from, 10 to 15% of the snaps to 15 to 20 in the pass catching, and Tyson Williams to step in and do more. But we've been talking a lot in the offseason about Baltimore really fortifying the pass-catching group. And so I wouldn't be surprised at all if this is sort of that thing that pushes them up into, 480, 490, 500 pass attempts this year.
Or 480, 490, 500 rush attempts by Lamar Jackson this year.
Right.
So, how high do you guys think Gus can go in fantasy this year? I mean, he's most projected. I would say Dobbins was likely. I'm pretty sure for all 3 of us, he was like a high-end RB2. I don't think Gus can get there.
So our consensus ranking for Dobbins, we had him ranked at RB15, and we had Gus ranked at. Where'd he go? I thought I had just highlighted him. Gus was like RB 49, 48.
Yeah. I mean, for me, I could see I would feel more comfortable with Gus in the 20 to 30 range. I still think they bring somebody in. PJ, I see your question out there too. Do you think they try to go get Duke Johnson? I personally don't think Duke Johnson fits the style that they're looking for. I think they're more apt to get more of a runner.
Yeah, they want a one-cut guy that's going to stick his foot in the ground and go.
And to let Justice Hill catch passes.
Yeah, Gus Johnson was our RB 48. I think moving him up into the mid-20s, somewhere between 20 and 28, is probably where he ends up. Maybe closer to the 28 than the 20. But I don't know. Gus has shown himself to be a little better pass catcher, I think, than he's gotten credit for. Something he's worked really hard on. Ronald Jones could take a lesson from that. But
that's a guy that I wouldn't be. If Tampa Bay ends up deciding that they don't need Fournette, I could see that being the kind of player. I doubt the Saints cut Murray, honestly, but
Tony Jones looked good. They got
There's been a
Ty
lot of
Montgomery.
talks. Yeah, there's been a lot of talks about them cutting him too.
But that would be another one. So a Fournette or a Murray, I guess, would definitely be. I think they're just looking for somebody who's going to rush. I think they like Justice Hill potentially as a pass catcher, and they're just adding to the mix.
All right, so next up, Erv Smith meniscus tear. Dennis, your thoughts on Erv Smith? Obviously, we all liked him, as a lot of other people did in the community, about him breaking out this year. I will be honest, I did not see how long he is going to possibly be out.
Let me tell you, that's because they do not effing know. Mike Zimmer gave a press conference today and said once they open it up and look around in there, we'll have an idea. He said that after one of the reporters asked if it could be the 6 to 8 month variety.
It could go any direction. It really stinks because Smith, he was my breakout tight end. I had him ranked at tight end 7. So it's my fault he's injured.
Well, and Zimmer talked about not caring for the depth that they have at tight end behind Smith and saying they were going to go look for a tight end, which makes me very cautiously afraid that Smith is going to be gone for a long time.
Yeah. I mean, obviously, I hope it's not that long. I mean, I've, in my very limited, never pro career, I tore my meniscus, and I wasn't out for 6 to 8 months. So let's hope that that's not how long it is. But obviously, no, I was playing soccer, which I feel like you need your knees a little bit more with the way you cut and everything. And but I also decided not to get it repaired. I went the Dwayne Wade route because I thought I was cool back in the day. And that's why I got that creaky knee now, like 34 years old. So it's not great. So Erv, take care of yourself. But obviously, hopefully, we hope he does not miss the entire season. If he does, that is really going to suck because he was, not only the tight end breakout for us, but a lot of people. So is there anybody on that team you want now? I mean, Rudolph is gone. Is it just Justin Jefferson and Adam Thielen?
Yeah, and it's going to be them and
Cook,
Dalvin Cook. But what would be awesome is if they went and got O.J. Howard.
Yeah, I feel like the comments that we got from Mike Zimmer indicated that he is not a Tyler Conklin or Zach Davidson believer because he literally said, we aren't very good at that position without Erv Smith. I mean, he's never been put to soft shoe anything, but that was going a little bit.
They're glorified tackles.
So this just adds to my. I said on Thursday I thought Minnesota had a good 7-10 energy. These are the reasons why.
Yeah, I'm glad we haven't done it.
I bet he'd be available from New York pretty cheap.
He might get cut.
Ian Thomas in Carolina, I bet he'd be available pretty cheap.
I've been hearing. Well, I've been hearing a lot of good things about him in Carolina. Actually, they're starting to use him a little bit. I don't know if they're going to cut him, at least not yet.
They can't really do their 3 wide receiver sets
because they don't have a third wide receiver.
Yeah, didn't Olabisi Johnson get injured too? They had to sign Dede Westbrook and Amir Smith-Marset. They might do more wishbone.
You know who they could get? I bet Zach Ertz.
They don't have the cap space, honestly. Minnesota is one of the.
Oh yeah.
One of the.
Cap space.
Who would you have
salary
to
cap
move?
is a myth.
Oh yeah.
The salary cap
I've been told
is a myth.
I've been told that the salary cap is a myth. You're right. So who knows? Speaking of the salary cap, one of the
that would be a good one.
I don't think the Browns are going to trade him, but he would be a good fit there, I think. Carson Wentz, who went to Indianapolis this offseason, is out with COVID. Sam Ehlinger out as well. No real concerns about Wentz missing the opener, though, Dennis? Yes, no?
No, I think we're 2 weeks away. So unless he contracts it and gets really sick, I think he'll be fine. But I guess being out 10 days, basically what it's telling you is he's not vaccinated.
Well, they were on the fence, though, about whether he could be ready for week 1 anyway, because he obviously had that, was it foot surgery?
Right.
Ankle surgery or something.
He knows the playbook. I don't have any concerns about that.
I was also fascinated that from the way they talked about Ellinger's injury being gone 5 to 6 weeks, it sounds like he had passed Jacob Eason, because the way they literally put it was Ellinger's out, so now they'll have to use Jacob Eason. And I thought, oh, interesting.
I mean, it makes sense. Ellinger is definitely the safer QB, if that may. Like, he's not going to turn the ball over. He doesn't have that gunslinger mentality that Eason has, and I think Ellinger is probably the safer bet for what Indy wants to do if Wentz were to get hurt. In my opinion, he makes more sense because they have a good enough team built around that quarterback position that a guy like Ellinger can just manage the game and still get them into the playoffs. So I think he's probably the safer bet.
I almost wonder if with this kind of COVID setback, and it was going to be touch and go about how much time Wentz was going to have to return to practice, coming off that foot surgery anyway, I bet we see Jacob Eason week 1. Because they're going against Seattle.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think so. So sticking with the Colts, another big injury that came out. So Zach Pascal was one of the people that got put on the COVID list, which left them thin at receiver. So too does the injury to T.Y. Hilton, who's having kind of neck spine injury. The last comments I saw from Reich suggested that he didn't have a good feel or timeline, that they were hoping he wouldn't miss the season, which is how they put it. Obviously, Colts fans, no strangers to neck injuries. Knocked out one of the greatest of all time in Peyton Manning. How does this make you feel about Hilton and the Colts passing game?
Well, I'm out on Hilton at this point. He played good down the stretch last year, but most of the season he battled injuries and wasn't very good. It's a sort of one of those classic cases of a small wide receiver that's 10 years into the league and struggling to stay healthy. Big wide receivers break down in one way and small wide receivers in another, and I think we're seeing that with Hilton right now. So if he's going to be out 6, 8, 10 weeks, depending on where they are, I wouldn't be surprised if they don't bring him back at all. But it's Pittman, Campbell, Michaels, Strahan, Strachan, however
Strachan, I think. Yeah.
Jonathan Taylor, Nyheim Hines.
It
Jack Doyle.
Could be good news for both Doyle and Hines, who was unclear what the target share would be. I think it's more pressure and more wheels up on Pittman and also Campbell if he can stay healthy and out there.
Let's hope.
Oh, I thought you were shaking your head like you didn't believe it.
No, I'm like, let's hope. Please, dear God, can Paris Campbell do something this year? I apologize. I'm having all kinds of issues over here today, so I just keep getting disconnected. So.
I just thought you were sad about Carson Wentz getting COVID.
I was a little bit. I didn't want you guys to see me tear up, so I shut down real quick. The first time was purely accident. Second time was my deep love for Carson Wentz. 49ers are rotating QBs possibly. Matt, this sounds like a bad idea because last I checked, we're talking about the NFL and not college football, where last time this worked, I think, was like Urban Meyer back with Tim Tebow at Florida. But am I wrong? Is this a good move for them?
This is the 49ers admitting that every fiber in their body wants them to be able to start Trey Lance, but they recognize that there are things that Trey Lance can't yet do, and they're afraid of seeing what might happen if they throw him out there week 1. They tried it in the preseason, and apparently felt pretty happy with it. They tried it in the preseason against the Raiders backups. I'm not sure I would consider that a wheels up test, but it certainly does seem like they're leaning that way, and I think for fantasy, that's going to make that quarterback situation a hot garbage for a while.
Well, I mean, we've seen the 2 quarterback thing work in New Orleans. So I think if you set your expectations there, then I think you'll be okay. But I don't know that, I agree with you. There's so much ability in Trey Lance and so much inexperience in Trey Lance that they just don't feel comfortable. Whether it's Shanahan saying, I don't know how to take my massive playbook and make it this big and feel like we can be successful, That might be it. Maybe, Shanahan's like, look, if I don't have access to all my stuff, I don't feel like we can win, and it puts us at a disadvantage. So I would rather use a less talented, a quarterback with less potential, such as Jimmy Garoppolo, more often, as opposed to Trey Lance with this, fountain of potential, because I know Garoppolo isn't going to make a mistake.
Just throw the kid out there. He's got more potential. That's what I got to say. Speaking of more potential, Mac Jones with the Patriots, does he have more potential than Cam Newton? Sounds like Bill Belichick is undecided as of right now. I think
Bill's been watching those 49er games thinking, hold my beer.
So Bill is very pragmatic, and I don't know what Cam's situation is when it comes to salary. I know that last year
he's on like a backup contract. It's still very cheap, his contract.
So yeah, I would not be the least bit surprised if Bill cuts Cam Newton. I don't think it's likely, but I wouldn't be surprised. I mean, Cam has played better than he did last year. But from what I've seen, Mac is outplaying him, and he's doing a lot of things right, and the stage hasn't been too big for Mac. And while he doesn't have the running ability that Newton does, I think in the other facets of the game, Mac is equal or better than Cam already. And so if Bill looks at his backfield and says, well, I think that if I don't have Cam Newton, I think I can get it done with Damian Harris, Ramondre Stevenson, James White, and J.J. Taylor. Plus, I've got Henry and Jonnu Smith at tight end, a good offensive line. And they got 8 players back on defense that opted out. Their defense is no joke. So it isn't like he needs to go out and score 40 points every week to win games. He's going to have the defense to be able to win close games and keep it close. So is it likely? Probably not. Would I be surprised if Cam gets shown the door? No. Belichick it's a business for him.
It is, but he has a certain respect for the game, and he has expressed a great respect for Cam Newton in the past. I would honestly be surprised to see them cut him here. And while I'll say that Cam Newton wasn't incredible on this last game where he was held out for a while due to that, COVID misunderstanding, in the second preseason game he started, he went 8 of 9 for 103 yards and a touchdown, had a 151.4 rating. In the opening game against Washington, he was 4 of 7 for about 50 yards in the couple of series he played. He hasn't played badly. I kind of feel like the Patriots will end up starting Newton to begin the season, and when they're still hanging around 500, not where they want to be, possibly when they lose to Tom Brady in week 4, they're going to flip the switch.
Yeah, as much as I'd love to see Max start, I've been one of the kind of big guys on that train, especially with compared to the rest of the camps to Canton crew here. I've been arguing for Mac Jones, what feels like much to my detriment. I do think that he will at least get to play at some point, but I do think they start Cam. I just think it makes more sense to start Cam. So with those two, I'm going to throw Fields in as well because he's not expected to start. Do you guys expect to see all 3 by, say, midseason then, starting on the field?
I don't know about San Francisco. If that trade-off works, I could see them continuing that for a while. But I expect to see Justin Fields by friggin' October. And I think we'll see Mac Jones by mid-October too.
Well, it just came out. Nick Wagner.
I saw.
Really, Trey Lance has a small chip in his finger. Going to be out about 7 days.
Yeah, so he's definitely not starting week 1.
Right.
I think Fields, it's just going to depend. Like if Dalton gets blown out and looks lost against the Rams, it's week 2. if Dalton looks competent and they lose to the Rams as they're expected to, I think Dalton starts against Cincinnati, his old team, which I think they have a decent chance to win, which probably puts them against Cleveland, which I think they'll get blown out and they make a trade by then.
All right. Gardner Minshew was traded to the Philadelphia Eagles. Does that matter, Dennis?
Nope.
Ooh,
I agree.
I disagree.
I mean,
I think they're collecting options.
It paves the way for a Hurts to Houston for Watson trade, and then they can wait a year. They can suck. You know, they don't have their first round pick next year. I think that went to didn't that go to Indy or no?
No, they would get Indy's.
Yeah, that's right.
Potentially get Indy's first round pick.
I think they still have their own. Yeah.
Yeah, so they could potentially have 2 first-round picks, which gives them some capital. I think we've seen at various points in the offseason that Jalen Hurts is the starter until he's not. Not exactly a confidence-boosting position. They probably saw what they had in Joe Flacco and Nick Mullins and decided that if they don't like what they're seeing from Hurts, they're definitely not putting one of those 2 in. But Minshew has been a starter, allegedly went all the way to the wire before Trevor Lawrence was picked as the starter in Jacksonville for reasons that surpass all our understanding. But I think they went and got him. Your call of potentially having him as an insurance for trading for Watson makes a lot of sense. I also think that if Philly is struggling and scuffling and sucking and Jalen Hurts is not the answer, that they give somebody else a try. They're looking, they pretty well admitted that if they thought they could have gotten, was it Lance, they would have stayed where they were in their draft position. They only traded back because it wasn't the quarterback they wanted, which tells you that they weren't, for as much as it's been, it's Jalen Hurts time. It's Jalen Hurts time until they can find something else.
I get that. Lance is different than Gardner Minshew, though. Lance's ceiling and is even better than Jalen Hurts. So I would do the same thing if I was Philly's GM. I don't see it mattering. I really, unless Hurts gets injured, I think Minshew's the backup. I think that's why they traded for him, to bring in a guy who's going to at least be a serviceable backup for them. I don't think Flacco was that answer. So I don't see Minshew competing for this job at all unless Hurts gets injured. I could be wrong, but I don't see it on. Speaking of the Deshaun Watson trade that Dennis just mentioned, there are a lot of rumors heating up that he is possibly on his way to Miami. Matt, do you think this actually happens? And if so, what does this mean for Houston and for Miami?
I mean, it would be a huge coup for Houston at this point in time because I think Houston's made it clear throughout training camp the way they're handling Watson that they don't really intend or want him to play on the field for them, and I'm not sure they really want to pay him out. I don't know if they've been waiting, hoping that the NFL was going to put him on an exempt list and answer this question for them. Despite spending a lot of the offseason saying they had no intention of trading him, everything that's happened since he reported to camp certainly indicates that they don't really want him to be there. So if they get the haul, I mean, the rumors are they're asking for 3 firsts and 2 seconds plus players. I mean, if they get something like that back, that would be the kind of key to rebuilding in a hurry because they don't have any assets. They don't have a great roster. They've managed to lose all their best and marketable players without getting anything back. This would be the first time they'd get something back. For them, it makes complete sense. For Miami, to me, it makes 0 sense. Miami has a good cap situation, good draft capital, a young quarterback that by all reports has had a fantastic camp. You added weapons around him that did not exist. You're in a good spot to compete. It does not make sense to me that you're blowing all that up and taking a chance on Watson. If you keep Tua there and you've replaced him, what does that do to his confidence? If you move him and then Watson can't play, you're down to Jacoby Brissett, which we saw how that played out for the Colts a couple of years ago. So I don't understand this for Miami.
Yeah. I mean, honestly, I don't know that there's a team out there that it makes sense to give 3 firsts and 2 seconds for Watson. If you do that, you need to add him to a team that you know is going to be a contender for the next 3 years. Well, breaking news, anybody that's sitting right now as a contender for the next 3 years has their quarterback. So yeah, anybody else, you're mortgaging your future for a piece, and you're more than one piece away. So it boggles my mind.
So I'll go the opposite. I actually think it makes a ton of sense for Miami. I mean, you're right. The reports for Tua have been amazing, and I hope that he proves me wrong, because I've kind of been the biggest one of saying I don't know if he ever gets back to what he was because of that hip injury. But even if he does, Watson's ceiling's higher. Watson's the better quarterback. I know that it's going to affect their cap situation bringing him over there, but you say 3 first-round picks, you could argue could be considered a first-round pick. So even if you give up next year's in 2023 Tua, and then say a wide receiver, they're not giving up Waddle, and I doubt they're giving up Parker. But if they send Will Fuller, well, he just came from Houston too, so that would be even better. That'd be funny. Will Fuller back to Houston, or even a Preston Williams, who, he's not – he has some talent, but he's not going to be a big loss for Miami. And they get the first-round picks, and then maybe some middle-tier defensive player that really helps out Houston. That gives them their franchise quarterback now moving forward, still on a rookie contract. They get the draft capital to try and build around him. And Miami does get a franchise-changing quarterback, because while we think Tua could be that, we don't know that for a fact. We know that Deshaun Watson, as long as he's on the field, is a franchise-changing quarterback. So you're right. Maybe he doesn't play this year, and that could screw them this year. But the chances are Deshaun Watson's going to play again, and it's likely going to be at least by next season. Miami becomes a serious contender with Buffalo, in my opinion, in the AFC East if they have Deshaun Watson as their quarterback with that team they have around him and that defense. I think Miami clearly becomes one of the better teams in the AFC with that. So I could see it from Miami's side. Are you taking a risk? Absolutely, but sometimes you gotta risk it to get the biscuit, right? Sometimes you gotta take those risks. Tua might be it, but I would say, and I'll ask you, Dennis, because you've kind of been the biggest proponent and the biggest supporter of Tua since he came out of the three of us. Is Tua's ceiling even Deshaun Watson's? Because I don't think so.
I don't think his ceiling is Deshaun Watson's, and part of that is he doesn't have the athletic ability of Watson. So where Watson's going to go out and rush for, 300 to 500 yards and 6 touchdowns, you're not going to get that from Tua. But I think Tua he's a Drew Brees type of quarterback. Not the strongest arm, great pocket presence, very accurate, good in the intermediate range, a strong enough arm to get the ball downfield enough. That's where I see Tua. And, I think, I wish I saw something come through my feed earlier this week that said the only QB1 to the only player to finish as a QB1 and not rush for I think it was 300 yards or something like that over the past 20 years was Drew Brees. And I don't want to say I expect Tua to come out and throw 40 touchdowns and 5,000 yards, but I think he's got a lot of the same tools that Drew Brees has when it comes to pocket awareness, pocket mobility, and accuracy. So if he can put it all together, I do think he's got a high ceiling. But I think the rushing ability of Watson, coupled with the other, the pocket awareness, the arm, that puts that puts Watson's ceiling higher.
All right. Before we get into these over-unders, Dennis, you had a message for everybody.
I do. So, we've been around the block for a few years now doing this show, and we're always looking, how can we help our listeners with the best tools in the business? Well, we've got a present for you. Hall of Famer Bob Harrison, Football Diehards, has the Flash Update Pro. You can get the tools that help Bob become a fantasy football Hall of Famer at footballdiehards.com/update pro. There's a full suite of tools to help make you a better fantasy manager. There's rankings, configurable cheat sheets, mock draft tools, consistency tools, target distribution, snap counts, so much more there. If you use our code ROUNDTABLE, you get an extra 15% off the already low price of $24 for the entire football season. Bob has been amazing. He's been on our show a couple times, and to allow us to offer this, I think is a testament to what a good guy he is. And the tools on there are great. I'm kind of looking through and playing with them. I'm in redraft season. While I do, we play a lot of Dynasty. I am doing some more redraft this year than I have done historically. And I've been finding the tools on the Flash Update Pro at footballdiehards.com to be extremely helpful.
It is well worth the money if you guys can afford it. I promise you that. All right, so let's jump into the AFC win totals. We're going to kick it off with the AFC North, which is arguably the toughest division in the AFC. And we're going to start with the Baltimore. Their over-under is set at 11, which is just perfect because that really makes you have to decide here. I will take the over because I still expect them to win the division. They're even losing Dobbins. I think this offense is going to be good. I think Lamar is going to be able to take a step forward, and this defense is going to be good. So I'm going to take the over. I think they can get to 12. Dennis, what are you taking for the Ravens?
So I'm going to take the under. I think it's going to be close. Maybe a push might even be what I would choose if I could. But I think they're going to finish second in the division. I think the Browns are going to win the division. I know you won't pick them because you're afraid of jinxing them.
Fox?
I am taking the under. I also have the Browns winning the division, Baltimore in the playoffs, but I actually have them with 10 wins.
All right. Speaking of the Browns, they are sitting at 10.5. Matt, I'll let you go first on this one. What are you picking for the Browns sitting here at 10.5?
I'm taking the over.
Did you pick Fox and I just missed it, or what?
Yeah, he picked under for
Fox,
Baltimore.
Bruning, what did you pick for
I haven't
Baltimore?
picked yet. Oh, Baltimore, I said over. I think they're going to go
Okay.
over. I think they get 12.
Okay.
Yeah, I think they get 12.
Gotcha. That's right.
I think they win the division, so yeah.
Yeah, I took the over for Cleveland. I have them at 11 wins.
I think Cleveland is they could have the best record in the conference. I think they're set up. Their defense is primed and ready to go. They addressed their biggest need on defense, which was their secondary. They went out and picked up a couple really strong safeties, a good linebacker. Jadeveon Clowney. I'm interested to see how Jadeveon Clowney looks, lining up next to Myles Garrett, not just opposite of Myles Garrett. Now, I know Clowney was kind of trashing interior linemen, much to my chagrin. But I think I think that defensive line is going to be good. And they've got the tools and arguably the best running back in the game. So Baker doesn't have to carry the load. So I like the Browns to maybe win 13, even 14 games.
Yeah, I was wrong. I had them at 12. I had to pull up my numbers.
Cue that James McAvoy gift from Wanted when you hear Dennis say the best in the conference. I'm over here like, oh my goodness. I hope. I'm gonna go under though. No, I'm gonna go over. I think they can get to 11. I think that's like the perfect number is 10.5 because I don't think there's any way they get under 10. I really do believe in this team. Stefanski, I think, is the perfect coach. Baker looks like he's taken a step forward. I love the defense. I love the offense. Outside of just mass injuries, I don't see how Cleveland disappoints. 12 seems high, though. But I do think they can get to 11, so I'll take the over.
Well,
Pittsburgh
remember,
at
12 is the old 11 now because it's 17.
I
games,
know,
so
but still, 11. 12
you can
seems
lose
high.
5
It just seems
games
high.
and still hit 12 now.
Still seems high. Pittsburgh at 8.5. I'll go first. I am going to take the over. I think they can get to 9. I do think this is going to be the most competitive division. I'm not going to write off Big Ben just yet. I think he can be just good enough to keep that offense on track. That defense is still going to be good under Tomlin. I think they can get to 9 wins, so I'm going to take the over. Dennis, what are you taking for the Steelers?
I'm going to take the over. I think it's a push. It could go, it's a 8-win or a 9-win season, I think, for the Steelers. They're not going to be awful. I think they're going to go ahead and, have a couple rough games. But I want to be able to say, oh, they're going to be awful. but I just don't think so. They've got good wide receivers, a good running game. They need to do some work on their offensive line, and they do have some stars on defense, but I think their defense isn't quite up to snuff with, say, the Browns and the Ravens.
Yeah, I have them as a slide over. I have them 9-win season.
The Cincinnati Bengals coming in at 6.5. I am taking the under. I do think they get to 6, but if I had to pick, I'm going to take the under. 7 just seems high. And I don't know if I can predict the whole division to go that high. So I think Cincinnati's kind of the one who gets knocked around a little bit. Still needs to improve that defense a little bit and that offensive line. Matt, what about you?
Yeah, I took the slight under too. I have them at 6.
Yeah, I do as well. I think it comes down to if their offensive line can gel, I think maybe their offense can keep them competitive, but I don't think their defense has what it takes to pull out games or stop good teams. And, we've already said that they're basically looking at 3 pretty powerful offenses in their division.
Yeah.
So that's 6 tough matchups right there. So as much as I would like to give Joe Burrow and T. Higgins, I think they're going to be playing catch up. So the offense is going to be great for fantasy with Burrow and Higgins and Chase if he can start catching the ball, and Tyler Boyd. I think they're going to be nice for fantasy, but I do think in the win-loss column we're going to suffer a little bit.
The AFC South, we will kick it off with the Tennessee Titans. They come in at 9. That is a big number. Matt, I'll let you go first while I think about this one.
I'm taking the over.
Yeah, I took the over as well. I feel like it's a push, kind of. I think this is going to be a tough division outside of Houston. And even Jackson, I think, might surprise with some close games. I think Jacksonville's probably, I take that back. They're not going to surprise. Urban Meyer is going to be an utter train wreck in the NFL. But that leaves the Titans and the Colts to be able to clean up all the spare parts there. So I have Tennessee going over.
I'll take the slide over. I guess they can get to 10. I think 9 is probably the best number for them. I'm not even sure they win the division. I still believe in Indy with the team that they have there, but Tannehill has been good. That defense is the thing that worries me the most on that team. I have no reservations about that offense. They'll be good, but that defense was a train wreck last year, and I don't think it's improved much of this offseason. Indy also comes in at 9 wins. I will take the over. I think they end up winning the division with or without Carson Wentz. Team is just too good. I think if he's out and Ellinger has to play because Wentz gets hurt, I think with the way that they will run the ball behind that top 3 offensive line and that defense, they'll be able to stay in games just enough to win enough to get them in. So I will take the over. Dennis, where are you going with the Colts?
I'm right there with you. I think they have the best combination of offense and defense in the division. I think that it's going to end up being it could set up Jonathan Taylor for not an RB1 season, but the RB1 season. If the quarterback can't stay healthy because they won't get vaccinated or whatever, the ankle is jacked up, or it's Sam Ellinger or Jacob Eason or whatnot, we could be looking at 330 carries, 350 carries for Jonathan Taylor and 50 receptions.
What is it with the NFL has like a vaccination rate over 90%, and all the ones that are unvaccinated appear to be starting quarterbacks. I mean, what the fuck is your problem? I would literally like to take a push because on my projection I have them at 9 wins, but I would feel better believing they'd hit 8 than I would 10. So I'll take a slight under if I have to move.
Jacksonville coming in at 6.5. Matt, which way did you go here with Jags?
I took the under. I think that's a little ambitious. They'll probably win more than the one game that they managed in 2020, but I still think there's some work to be done there.
Yeah, as I said before, I feel like Urban Meyer is going to be an unmitigated disaster in the NFL.
Yep, I agree. I've said I didn't think he'd be very good head coach, and then you add in Darrell Bevel, who's like the run heaviest offensive coordinator as well. I'm not believing in them at all. That brings us to Houston, who's sitting at 4. I will take the under here as well. Whether Watson plays or if they do end up pulling off that trade and getting Tua, there's just not enough on this team to win enough games. I think when we did our first run through, I had them at 1 win. Maybe they get to 2. They're not getting to 5.
I mean, they've already announced they're having a sale. I would expect Laramie Tunsil's going to go. Whitney Merciless is going to go. Anybody that has any value on that team, Brandon Cooks, is going to be playing for somebody within the next 4 weeks.
Well, that's the interesting part because he said he wouldn't take a trade. I wonder if he's changed his mind after looking around, reading the room.
Who's that?
Brandon Cooks, he said
good.
before when he got traded to Houston that he wouldn't allow himself to be traded again. He'd just assume retire. But this is tough. I definitely took the under because I don't think Watson plays or they get Tua. But if I thought they had either of those two quarterbacks a full season, I don't know that getting to 5 wins is completely out of the realm of possibility. Their schedule is not incredibly challenging. It's just their team doesn't seem that challenging. And if you're telling me it's Tyrod Taylor or Davis Mills overcoming those challenges, I'm not buying it.
All right, Buffalo going on to the AFC East. They're coming in at 11. Which way you going, Matt?
Took the over. I think they get to 13.
Ooh, very bold.
Well, they were 13-3 last year, so not as bold as you think.
Man.
I think I'm going to take the over, but I think 11 is the number. But I'm going to take the over just a little bit.
I want to go under. I think they take a step back this year. I really do. I'll take the over. I guess if I had to go one way, I think Dennis is right. I think 11 is the number.
Go with your
okay,
gut.
I'm gonna go under. I think they take a step back. I mean, I still think they can win the AFC East with 10 wins, but I don't think they're going to be 13-3 again this year. That defense, I think the defense will still be good. Allen was like on another level. Probably should have won the MVP. He did not, much to Mr. Fox's chagrin there. I don't know that he keeps that up. There's a lot of discord up there with all the Cole Beasley stuff and everything else. You got McDermott saying crap. I just don't like the vibes right now, Buffalo.
Next Monday when we get to our Super Bowl predictions, you're going to love where I landed because I had to lock mine in for another thing I was doing, and you're going to hate both of my choices.
Well, that's wonderful. So, yeah, I'll go 10. I still think they win the AFC East, but I think they're going to go under. I'm not big on the Buffalo this year. The New England Patriots coming at 9.5. I will take the over. Dennis mentioned earlier when we were talking about Cam, they're getting all those defensive players back that they lost out last year because of COVID. I just don't see Bill having 2 bad seasons in a row, whether it's Cam or Mac Jones. I think they can get to 10 wins, and I think they're going to fight for that division this year. So I think the Patriots will go over.
Well, I think you're short selling the AFC East champion New England Patriots. They're going to win that division. Bill is going to will it to happen. He saw Brady take a dump on his legacy last season, and now he's out for revenge.
Well, he's going to see Brady deliver an upper decker to him in week 4. But I'm taking the under. I don't think they make the playoffs, and I think there's a chance this is it for Bill.
Very interesting. All right, the Miami Dolphins at 9.5. Go ahead, Matt.
I'm taking the over. I like them to make the playoffs. I even like them to – they were 10-6 last year. I think they get back to 10 wins. I think they squeak in this year, even with Tua. If it's Watson and he plays all season, they could potentially go higher.
My instinct wants to say over, but, our natural inclination is to go for the over. And when I look at, I'm kind of predicting a couple teams having really good records and a couple teams not so good in pretty much each division. And I've already picked Buffalo and New England. So that means I've got to take the under on the 9.5. It may be 9. They may go 9-7. They may go 9-8. They may go 8-9. But both of those numbers come in at the under.
That 17-game schedule is throwing all of us off.
Well, we got used to the
It's
San
like
Diego
when
Chargers,
Matt said that the Bills won't finish 13-3, I 100% guarantee they won't finish 13.
Yeah. I'm with Dennis. I'm gonna go under. And it's weird because I really like the Dolphins this year, but I'm thinking about I'm like, I just picked 3 teams in the AFC North to go over, 2 teams in the AFC South. Like, somebody in the AFC has gotta suck. They can't all be over. And there's at least one team in the AFC West that I know I'm taking the over on outside of the Chiefs. So I'm going to go under here. Miami 9-7, right? Am I adding that up correctly? I'm horrible with math. Or is it 9-8 now? 9-8. This still probably could make it into the playoffs, so it still could be right. But I'm going to take the under. I think 9's the perfect number. I know it's at 9.5, so I'm going to take the under. That brings us to the Jets at 6 wins, and I'm taking the under. I think they're like a 4-13, stupid 17-game schedule. 4-13 type season for them this year.
Yeah, I'm taking the under as well. I think it's going to take more than a year for Saleh to undo the issues they've had.
You know, I like where they're going. I think it's in his best interest to go 3-14 this year and have a high pick. Not that any team is going to really tank. They are professionals. But the higher the pick they get, the better. Whether they use it for a game-changing defensive player next season or a game-changing offensive lineman. They've added to that offensive line with Vera Tucker, Mekhi Becton. They're building it the right way. I feel like it's, 6 wins is a big ask. So I'm going under.
All right, that moves us on to the AFC West. Kansas City coming in at 12.5 wins. Matt, which way are you going with them?
Slight under. Have them at 12.
Man, I'm struggling with this one. So I haven't answered the question yet because I'm like hoping one of you guys will sell me on the over or the under, because I feel like we're in the situation right now with Kansas City that we're all going, oh, well, they're just awesome and they're always going to win everything. And everybody on their team is always going to be a QB1 or a wide receiver 1 or a running back 1 or a tight end 1 or something. And I feel like it's turning into that sort of blind allegiance to KC being, the best in the league. And I don't know if 13 wins, I could see him going, 12-5.
That's where I have them, 12-5. I think the West is stronger than people are giving credit for. We've seen them struggle against Chargers and Raiders the last couple of years. The Raiders even clipped them once. I think they could lose a couple division games.
Yeah, and everybody, even though Tampa won last season, so many people expect the Chargers or the Chiefs to be back in the Super Bowl again this year. Everybody's still gunning for them. They're the team everybody still wants to beat. So I'm going to take the under.
I'm taking the under as well. I think 12 or 11 wins is more likely than 13 for the Chiefs. Next
Why
up,
are you such
the
a
Chargers.
hater? Why do you hate the Chiefs?
I'm just not sure that the Chiefs are going to be that good this year. I don't even know if they make it to the AFC Championship. The Los Angeles Chargers come in at 9.5, hammer the over. Justin Herbert in MVP discussions this year. Leads the Chargers to the playoffs. I'm all in on my boy Herbert. I think that they're going to make it into the playoffs.
I like, the part of the reason that I was struggling with choosing the over for the Chiefs is because I really do like the Chargers a lot. They've got some playmakers on defense in Bosa and Derwin James. They've added to the linebacker core there. Then you've got Austin Eckler, Keenan Allen, Justin Herbert. While I'm not big on Jared Cook, I feel like Cook is going to be just enough to diminish my tight end 1 call on Donald Parham. And they've got a first-year head coach. So I think they get to 10 wins, but I don't think they win the division.
I took the under. I have them at 9 wins.
Hater. Denver Broncos coming in at 8.5. What you got, Matt?
I took the slight over. I have them at 9 wins, despite Teddy fucking Bridgewater.
So how's the Denver offensive line shaping up?
The offensive line is actually pretty incredible. Bowles developed into a great tackle thanks to Mike Munchak. They have Glasgow and Dalton Risner at the guards. They have Cushenberry with the belly, Quinn Meinert's there to back him up at center. And they have Bobby Massey with Calvin Anderson and Cam Fleming as options at tackle. Their starting offensive line has been pretty impressive. They have a decent running back. They have great receivers. They just have a noodle arm check down king at the quarterback position.
If I remember Bobby Massey,
he's a horrific head coach.
He's going to need those other two guys out there with him to be able.
Well, I actually like Calvin Anderson. I think they're on the fence about whether he's going to start, and they're just going to keep Massey for insurance. But Calvin Anderson's looked really good at right tackle. Can swing over to left tackle as well.
Well, all of that being said, I have them. I think they're going to win 8, so I'm going to take the under.
That's probably more.
I will take the slight over. I had him in the playoffs when we did our first run through, and I still believe that, we talked a little bit about this. I feel like it was a week ago, maybe 2 weeks ago, Matt, with the defense finally having Von Miller and Bradley Chubb healthy together. Got a good secondary, got good linebackers. Realistically, I think they have a good offense. Maybe that's why they went with Teddy Bridgewater, because he's just safe, and they want to play it safe to get into the playoffs. I think there's a realistic shot they do that if they go over here. So I will take the over. That puts us with the Las Vegas Raiders over-under at 7. I'm taking the under. I think this is finally it for Derek Carr. He shits the bed just enough that, my God, I forgot his name.
John Gruden.
John Gruden. There we go.
Oh.
John Gruden finally benches him for Marcus Mariota, and Derek Carr is gone from the Raiders after this season.
So I've got the under, but I kind of agree with the potential for Carr to get benched. But I think if Carr gets benched, then Mariota, if it's by midseason, Mariota could potentially put him over. If they go 3-6. And then Mariota takes over, I would take the over 7 for the rest of the. I feel like they're going to go like 9-8 at that point. I feel Mariota just brings a different dimension to that team, and it's a shame that he didn't get an opportunity to go somewhere and be a starter again this year. I feel like his shoulders finally gotten healthy. I do agree you don't just bench Carr because he's playing okay. He's going to have to suck to get benched or get injured to get benched. So I took the under for the Raiders.
I have to be honest. I thought 7 was a low number for the Raiders, given where they've been the last couple of years. And obviously, as a diehard Denver Broncos fan, I'm no great fan of the Raiders organization. But I took the over. I think they get to 9 wins.
Well, that wraps up our over-unders. So do you think you have what it takes to beat the pros? FantasyNation.com. Put your rankings up against the best in the business. Defending champ Rob Wozniak of the FF Ballers, Jake Seeley of The Athletic, Bill Enright of Sports Illustrated, or our own favorite, Matthew Fox of the Fantasy Football Roundtable. Put your rankings up. You can do preseason rankings, get them done before the first game of the season. If you have the most accurate rankings in this contest, you'll win $500 at the end of the season. If you're into doing weekly rankings, you play redraft and you like to choose your guys, you can go ahead and do the weekly rankings accuracy contest. And if you're the most accurate at the end of the season, you win $1,000. There's also a $100 payout, and I misspoke last time and said $1,000. But it's a $100 payout for quarterback, running back, wide receiver, and tight end if you're the most accurate ranker throughout the season. Go to fantasyNation.com/ranker. There's no fee to enter. You just got to update your weekly rankings every week.
Yeah, that season-long competition's turned into a real bummer with all the injuries. I have to update it every week, every 2 days.
All right, so that will do it for us today. We will be back on Thursday, Matt and myself talking about the What are we doing? Award predictions and what if? I need to catch up on both on the episode as well because I still have not
I'll
watched
be
it yet.
incredibly curious to see what you thought about the third episode. Polarizing is the word I would use to describe it.
Interesting. So I got to get the third and I'll get the fourth done as well on Wednesday in preparation for that. Might talk a little bit of college football as well as the Ohio State Buckeyes will be playing in Minnesota right as we're going off air Thursday. So a lot of good college games. They got the whole, like I said, Wednesday through Monday to themselves. I think it's Monday or maybe no. I think the last game's on Sunday. Do they have a game on Monday? I thought the last game's on Sunday.
They usually on opening weekend do one for Labor Day Monday.
I think the last one they have is on Sunday this year, Florida State versus Notre Dame. But I could be wrong on that. But that'll do it for us today. We will see you guys again on Thursday. Everybody